It seems like most of us would be able to spot these people, though, right? We're all really good judges of character. We know when someone's using us. How do these hijackals manage to slip under the radar?
Well, there's a few ways. First of all, they're chameleons. So they will be whomever you want them to be, whomever they have to be in order to charm you, manipulate you, persuade you, or seduce you. So you can really think I've met my soulmate. I've met the most perfect person. They're reading you perfectly. They're feeding it back to you. And you're going, oh, let me let my defenses down. I finally met this perfect person. And then they begin to subtly change. Sometimes they change drastically. So it's really important to understand that these people have the ability to draw you in and reduce your defenses, make you honestly believe that you are a great judge of character and you have taken them in and read them as perfect for you. And then things change. And then when they change, you don't want to say, oh my, I made a mistake. We go, oh, let me help them. If only I'm more compassionate, more loving, more patient, more kind, less demanding, I will be able to nourish and nurture them, and they will then feel loved. And when they feel loved, they'll love me back, and everything will be great because we're people of goodwill. But that's not the case with a hijackal. It doesn't work that way.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. And today we are talking about how to deal with the toxic people in your life. Now, you know the ones, they're the names that spring to mind the instant I said toxic people. They're work colleagues, they're family members, and sometimes they're even partners or spouses. They're people who are bad for you. They make you doubt yourself. They take over your life, and you can't seem to just get rid of them. You know, you can't cut those ties. Well, Dr. Rhoberta Shaler is here to help. She's a relationship consultant, mediator, speaker, and author who provides urgent and ongoing care to relationships in crisis. She helps her clients to recognize and to stop tolerating abuse from the relentlessly difficult people, whom she calls hijackals. Her work has appeared in Cosmopolitan, Good Housekeeping, The Good Men Project, eHarmony, and Your Tango. And today she's here to talk to us about how we can deal with the hijackals in our lives. Welcome, Dr. Shaler.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Amy.
So let's start out by defining toxic people. What is a toxic relationship?
A toxic relationship is a relationship where you always feel less than, you are always feeling caught off, you're off guard, you're feeling that somebody has power over you, you feel cut off at the knees, you can't do anything right, you're always being blamed, and everything is your fault.
That sounds very typical. I can immediately think of a couple relationships right now. Do you think this is something that a lot of people struggle with, or is this pretty rare?
Oh, unfortunately, it's getting less and less rare. Everybody knows one of these people once we begin to understand what a hijackal is. Because when you realize that, you go, oh, that's what was happening. That's why I felt so terrible. That's why I would walk away dazed and confused from these relationships, and that I didn't look forward to being around those people.
So you call these people hijackals.
Mm-hmm.
Where
And the
does that name
reason
come
I
from?
call them hijackals is because too many people were going to the Google Goddess and they were saying, here's what's happening to me. Now remember, the Google Goddess is an index, not a professional. So the Google Goddess spit back psychological labels and diagnoses. That's not healthy. That's not good. It might give you an idea that, oh, I am in trouble here. There is something bad going on. But don't be diagnosing other people. And so I wanted a non-clinical term that would allow everybody to talk about the common traits, patterns, and cycles of these relentlessly difficult people. So I created the term hijackal. And the definition for that is hijackals are people who hijack relationships for their own purposes and then relentlessly scavenge them for power, status, and control.
It seems like most of us would be able to spot these people, though, right? We're all really good judges of character. We know when someone's using us. How do these hijackals manage to slip under the radar?
Well, there's a few ways. First of all, they're chameleons. So they will be whomever you want them to be, whomever they have to be in order to charm you, manipulate you, persuade you, or seduce you. So you can really think I've met my soulmate. I've met the most perfect person. They're reading you perfectly. They're feeding it back to you. And you're going, oh, let me let my defenses down. I finally met this perfect person. And then they begin to subtly change. Sometimes they change drastically. I have one client, and I have clients all over the world because I work by video conferencing. I have one client who was love bombed, that's what we call it, up until her wedding night. And on her wedding night, he changed like that and just was horrible to her, physically assaulted her, and walked out. And that was what their wedding night looked like. So it's really important to understand that these people have the ability to draw you in and reduce your defenses, make you honestly believe that you are a great judge of character and you have taken them in and read them as perfect for you. And then things change. And then when they change, you don't want to say, oh my, I made a mistake. We go, oh, let me help them. If only I'm more compassionate, more loving, more patient, more kind, less demanding, I will be able to nourish and nurture them, and they will then feel loved. And when they feel loved, they'll love me back, and everything will be great because we're people of goodwill. But that's not the case with a hijackal. It doesn't work that way.
What do they want from us? Like,
Control.
I completely see in so many ways the pattern that you're talking about, where people treat you as amazing and you think, yes, I'm amazing and this feels so good. And then you get closer to them and then they start to take you down and you think, well, they're just seeing the real me. I guess they're seeing actually my flaws. I do need to step up. Why do they even do this to us? Like, isn't there better uses of their time?
Oh no. You see, the thing about hijackals is, sadly enough, don't get trapped in the sadly. Sadly enough, they've organically been grown to be this way. They are so fragile. Even though appearing arrogant and strong and on top of everything, emotionally so fragile that they must have control over you. They must dominate you. They must even go so far as to define your reality. A hijackal will tell you what you think, feel, need, and want. And at that moment, you've got to have every red flag perfectly in sight. So, what do you mean you're telling me? You know, I remember a fellow saying to me when I was dating, and he said, "Well, you think this," and I said, "Excuse me, did we have a conversation about that? Did you ask me what I think?" And he said, "Well, no." I said, "Don't ever presume to know what I think if you haven't asked me." Now, that's my hijackal radar. I was raised by a den of hijackals. That's why I'm so effective in doing this work. And so, therefore, I attracted hijackals in my life. I had to do the work to stop doing that. Good news is you can do the work, but you must work with somebody who really understands this dynamic.
So I want to know what makes us certain people so appealing to hijackals and not others. If you are someone who seems to attract a lot of people who want to tell you what to do, who want to tell you what to think, who want to make you feel your flaws, what is in you that's attracting them?
Well, they can see your insecurities. They can see how much you long to be loved. They can see how much you long to be approved of. Imagine how attractive that is to a hijackal, because they can dangle the "I will validate and approve you if," and then they keep moving the carrot, right? So you keep leaning in thinking, I'll do more, and then they'll tell me I'm wonderful and I'm loved. Their whole game is to tell you you're not wonderful, you're not loved. I hold that control in my hand. So they have complete power over you. It's most often a subtle process, but sometimes it's not. It's like being hit by a Mack truck. But what's within us is the desire to please, the desire to be liked, the desire to be loved, the desire to be cherished and validated. And so we keep hoping that that person is the one that will give it to us. And we stop realizing why we've got our rose-colored glasses on looking for what we want to see, that it's really hard to see red flags when you're wearing rose-colored glasses.
And unlike them, we always want to see the best in people. So that
Exactly.
works against us. So I want to know what the difference between this and like a narcissist or somebody who verbally and emotionally abuses is. Is it all a package?
It's all a package. The reason I created Hijackals is so people are not making psychological diagnoses when they're not psychologically trained to make diagnoses. Hijackals, if we look at the psychological situation, Amy, in the DSM-5, what would happen if somebody came to someone to be diagnosed? There are a bunch of traits, and all of them fall into personality disorders. So whether it's a narcissist, a histrionic, a borderline, a sociopath, a psychopath, any of those definitions that we've had in the past, all that the person who's diagnosing does is say, okay, on this scale, like this person has this particular 4 in this particular amount, therefore the diagnosis is this. Or they have 3 of these and 2 of those. Okay, it's this diagnosis. That's how it works. So we needed the non-clinical term to say all hijackals, regardless of diagnosis, all hijackals drink from the same pool of traits. They're going to have all of those traits, most of those traits. So it doesn't matter. But yes, hijackals include all those people.
Do they ever change? Is
No.
there some way you can wake up a hijackal and get that healthy, loving relationship you wanted in the first
Oh,
place?
that's what you're dreaming of. That's what you're longing for. That's what you're leaning into. That's what you want. There, in the case of borderlines, they are the only ones who have some empathy. And so borderlines will have times when they are truly remorseful that they've hurt you and they truly want to change, and they can change. But it takes a long time with the dialectic behavior therapy for them to change. But the rest of them know, because they're perfect. That, remember what I said about having such a fragile ego and sense of self? They have to believe they're perfect. They don't need help. There is nothing wrong with them. So therefore, why would they change?
Oh, that is just so perfect. Again, people are springing to mind. But I want to know then, once you've made, like, how do you make that realization? How do your clients finally realize that this is what's happening to them? Because I know as a woman, and I'm sure lots of people are like this, you want to see the best in people. You're very willing to believe it's your fault because, we all know we could be better. We all know, well, non-hijackals all know we're not perfect. When does the light go on? What's the trigger that helps your clients realize that this is an unsalvageable toxic relationship?
Well, 2 things happen, Amy. One is that they get hurt. They get physically hurt. And usually it's cumulative. They'll be shoved a little, they'll be pushed a little, they'll have a hijackal standing in front of a door and not letting them out, or grabbing their arms or whatever. But hijackals who tend to physical violence tend to go for your throat. They will choke you. They will do things. And at that moment, it's so overt that you cannot ignore it. I've had people with hijackals in my practice. I have one now who was actually damaged. Her thyroid was damaged by being strangled. But it took strangulation before she finally went and said no more. So physical and sexual violence is the one way that people mostly wake up. I wish they'd wake up earlier with the verbal and emotional violence, but they don't. And the other way they wake up is when they see the person, the hijackal, treating their children poorly. And they realize that I don't want my child to become like this. I don't want my child to see this as a model of how a man or a woman behaves, or how a man and woman in relationship behave. And so they will wake up for their children, where they will put up with it for themselves.
So what does the victim of a hijackal do? Like, if this is a spouse, if this is a mother or a father that's doing it, these people are in our lives. Can we survive, stay in those relationships and survive, or is there another option?
Why would you? Why would you want to survive in that relationship? You are constantly going to be in a codependency mode, whether you want to or not. You know, healthy people are independent, absolutely independent. And then they come together, they recognize wonderful things, and they choose to become interdependent. Unhealthy people, or even some healthy people who got slowly bent over and sucked into it, are codependent. And they get into a relationship of codependency. Either both are codependent or one is codependent, and that can get worse. Even if you started out as an independent, know this about hijackals. There are two kinds. One kind really likes to seek out the weak, the one that is the obvious target, and make them weaker. The other hijackal likes to choose a really strong person as a challenge and see if they can bend them into codependency. So it's really important to understand the distinction and recognize as early as possible it's time to whip off those rose-colored glasses. You can't fix it. You can't change it. You have to do your own work within yourself. Learn to say no. Learn to have non-negotiable boundaries and stand up and say, if this continues, I'm leaving. And whether that's your mother or your father or your partner or your ex or your boss or your friend, you need to be able to say, no, this is not going to happen in my life. And, you know, you said earlier in the introduction, Amy, that, you know, you can't cut ties with them. Oh, yeah, you can. And you need to. You absolutely need to be willing to say, I matter. I matter. My children matter. And this is unhealthy. And I refuse to live with it and in it any longer.
One of the unfortunate things about hijackals, at least the ones I've known, is that they threaten you. If you dare to leave, if you dare to think of leaving, this is what I'm going to do to you. So leaving may not be as easy as it sounds. Do you have any tips on how to leave a hijackal?
Yes, two trips. First of all, if there's no physical or sexual violence, do your own work right within there. Go get some help, some very specialized help. Clarify, become empowered, get strategies and skills, try them out while you're with the hijackal, practice them, see if it makes any difference, because there are degrees of hijackals, so it can make a difference, making it more tolerable. Won't fix it, but can make it more tolerable. Hone your skills first, and while you're honing your skills, make a plan. Hijackals have a very nasty habit of wanting control of the finances in a relationship. So one of the things you're going to have to do is to have a good look to see, are you financially taking care of yourself while you're in a relationship? Or has the hijackal taken control of all the money? Because you need to make a plan to make sure things are in your name, make sure you have money, make sure you're setting things aside, make sure of the in the entire package that you have financially, and you may have to stick around to reformat that in order to make a healthy exit. So that's one way. The other way is that there is sexual or physical violence, and you just have to go. That's all there is to it. The only safe way is to go. And you must go no contact, and you must get a restraining order. And many people say, oh, well, I don't want to do that to him or her. It'll be on their record. It'll affect their job history. No, that's codependency. They don't care about you. Stop caring about them and care about yourself. Get back on the bus of independence. No, nobody's going to treat me this way. I know it's hard. It really is hard because you've gotten into a pattern and you think more about the other person than you think about yourself. But you have to pull that back and start thinking about, what do you need? Don't start thinking about what it'll do to the other person. That's their problem.
Now, you have a wealth of resources about how to do this. You've written 16 books. You've got 2 podcasts, and you offer personalized coaching. Talk to us about the help you can give people watching this right now.
Sure, thanks. Yes, first and foremost, go to my website, forrelationshiphelp.com, FOR relationshiphelp.com. You'll find lots of things there. In particular, go to books and programs and find my program, Seeing the Cycles. It's a home study program, so you can thoroughly identify whether or not you have a hijackal in your life, how that happened, what happened to you in your early life, do the reflective exercises, get really clear. Then you can go to my YouTube channel, For Relationship Help. Lots of stuff there. My podcasts are Emotional Savvy, the Relationship Help Show, and Save Your Sanity, Help for Handling Hijackals. They're both available. You'll see them when you go to forrelationshiphelp.com, click on podcasts and video. I also have an Emotional Savvy channel on Binge TV networks. You can watch the show there on a regular basis. So there are lots of things you can do. And when you're ready, come and work with me privately. I'd be really happy to help you because I have walked it. I have lived it. I have outlived it. And I have the nasty video. I know every trick in the book for a hijackal. And it helps you to be with someone who has lived it, experienced it, and overcome it, and can help you do the same.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Shaler, for coming onto the show and talking to us about this. I wondered if you had any last message you would like to leave our viewers with.
I do. You deserve to take up space and draw a breath. You deserve to be able to say what you think, feel, need, and want without anybody arguing with you. Always remember that, because you deserve to be assertive. You're not talking about anybody else. You're not putting anybody down. You're not making judgments of someone else when you say what you think, feel, need, and want without ever saying the word you. And that's a tip, Amy, from my book, Kaizen for Couples. It's a technique that I call the personal weather report. It is the best thing ever if you want to hone your skills on how to get along with other humans.
Fantastic. Thank you. And thank you out there for watching. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.